Well, I cut myself off, so this is going to be part 2 of Module 4, Lesson 4. So I've just shown you some examples in real life of parallel lines, and I want you to do the same. Look around your house, see if you can find some parallel lines. Without parallel lines, things like roofs would have a really hard time standing up. Probably the chair that you're sitting on has legs that are parallel lines. If they weren't parallel, they would make that chair fall over. So parallel is really important. In fact, you could look down at your legs. They're probably parallel to each other, although you can make them cross. But when you're standing up straight, they're parallel. So parallel is one of those types of things that we don't really realize until we learn about it, that it's everywhere. Well, in geometry, we like to use little marks to show things. Think about when we were showing right angles. We put that little square in the corner of a right angle to show everyone that that was a right angle. Well, we can do the same thing when we are talking about parallel lines. And when we do that, we make these little arrows showing that these lines are parallel. They're going to go in the same direction. We can imagine if they kept on going into infinity and beyond, they would never cross. So I can put little notes on lines like this, and that lets the people who are looking at my math know that I mean that those lines are parallel. Sometimes it's really hard to draw perfection, isn't it? It's really hard to draw exactly right, and so we want to let people know, just like when we put a square in the corner of a right angle, we want to let people know that's what we're talking about. We're talking about parallel lines. So we're going to tell the people that are looking at our math that we intend for these lines to be parallel. Now, when we are writing and we're comparing pairs of parallel lines, just like we did perpendicular lines, parallel lines always have to come in pairs of 2 because we're saying that one is parallel to the other. So let's put some points on these line segments, actually. I'm going to call this one line segment AB, and I'm going to call this one line segment CD. And when I'm writing a geometric sentence saying that these 2 line segments are parallel, this is how I write it. Line segment AB is parallel to line segment CD. This is very similar to what we did when we did perpendicular, except the sign in between them is now showing that they're parallel. Let's make these lines. So I'm going to add arrows to the ends of both of these so that they're now lines. And I'm going to call this one line EF and this one line GH. And now I'm going to say that line EF, I've got to remember to put this little arrows to show that it's a line and not a line segment. Line EF is parallel to line GH. So this is how I show parallel lines in my drawings, and this is how I show that lines are parallel when I'm trying to let somebody know which 2 lines are parallel. Now, one thing that you need to know, we know that parallel lines never intersect. What about line segments that look like this? What if I were to take my straight edge and I were to make one line segment going this way and another line segment going this way? Now, are they intersecting? They're not intersecting, are they? But we have to imagine that these lines will continue on maybe into a part where we can't see. So I'm just going to take my pencil and I'm going to extend these lines just a little bit, and I'm going to see what would happen if they did continue going on. Are they going to eventually intersect? Yes, they sure are. So these lines are not parallel. This is a great example of not parallel. Let me draw a couple more for you. I want you to tell me which one is parallel, which one is not parallel. got these two lines. Are they parallel? If you said yes, you are exactly right. Because if I continue these lines in my imagination, I can see that they are never going to intersect. So I can say with certainty that these lines are parallel. But if I'm going to draw these, what do you think? Are they going to intersect? And take my finger and I can keep tracing. There's a crash. They intersected. So these lines are not parallel. Now that you know what parallel lines are, they are lines that never, ever intersect. We're going to see if we can identify some parallel lines in real life and on some shapes. So I'm going to be looking at your problem set today, and I'm looking at pages 25 and 26. Now you'll notice that there is a page 27, but that's going to be optional, guys. If you want to go ahead and do page 27, you can, but you do not have to. So what you're going to do in problem number 1 is you're going to trace at least one pair of parallel line, or at least one pair of lines that appear to be parallel on each of these figures. Now you'll notice that these are very similar to the figures or the pictures that we used when we were in lesson 3 learning about perpendicular lines. So sometimes objects can have perpendicular lines and parallel lines. For example, this paper, I can see perpendicular lines right here on this right angle on the corner of the paper, but I can see parallel lines on the lines where you would write. So today we're looking for parallel lines. So you are going to trace at least one pair, which means two lines that appear to be parallel. And I'd like for you to trace it, and I'd like for you to draw the arrows in the same direction showing that they're parallel. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this hexagon. I'm sorry, it's not a hexagon. What's wrong with me? This is a trapezoid. I spoke a little bit too soon. This is an upside down trapezoid, or doesn't really matter, trapezoid either way. And I think that these lines on the top and the bottom appear to be parallel. So I'm going to put those little arrows on the top and the bottom of this trapezoid showing that they are parallel. And I'm going to trace them. What about the lines on the sides? Well, if they continued on into the future, they're going to crash. So these sides are not parallel. This is where you write your definition of how do you know that two lines are parallel. And then last, at the bottom of page 3, you're going to use the given segments in each grid to draw another segment that is parallel using a straight edge. The easiest way to do that is just to take a ruler or something that's thin, if you've got it, and just trace the opposite side. So I've just traced across, lined up one side of my straight edge with the line that's there, and traced the other side. And then I'm going to put my arrows showing that these two lines are parallel. And then I'm going to draw another line that's parallel to this one. And I'm going to draw a line that's parallel to this one and to this one. So this is your, just like we did with perpendicular lines, you are identifying, which means finding, seeing, defining, so giving me a definition, and drawing parallel lines. Remember I told you that page 27 is optional, so let's come over to page 4. Now, I'm sorry, not page 4, problem 4, which is on page 26. Now, in the directions, it tells you to use your straight edge and your right angle template. We're not going to worry so much about that today because that was something technical that I really didn't show you in the video. So I want you just to see if you can find the lines inside of these different shapes that are parallel, and you are going to mark them with arrows going the same way, and then you're going to write a geometric sentence telling which two are parallel. So let's look at the first one. Let's look at A, which has been started for you. We've got a rectangle, And in this rectangle, we can see that the person who started this activity said that line segment AB is parallel to line segment CD, and they've shown that with those two arrows. Now when I look at this shape, I can see another set of parallel lines. I can see that line segment AC is parallel to line segment BD. So I'm going to draw another set of arrows going this way, showing that these lines are going up and down. And I'm going to write that line segment AC is parallel to line segment BD. Now I'm going to tell you that some of these shapes are not going to have any parallel lines. So I want you to look. Do you see anybody that has no parallel lines? If you said this triangle here, you are correct. There are no lines that are parallel. Every single one of these lines are going to intersect. So I'm just going to write no parallel lines. That's that little geometric shorthand for parallel. Now there are going to be some shapes on here that just have one pair of parallel lines. And there are going to be some shapes on here that have a lot of pairs of parallel lines. So I want you to do your best. I want you to try this page. See what you get. See if you can identify the parallel lines that are on the figures on this page. Anybody want to take a guess as to which one of these shapes has the most pairs of parallel lines? If you said G, you're correct. G actually has 3 pairs of parallel lines. And I'm going to let you see if you can identify them. All right. After this today, you've got an exit ticket that I'd like for you to submit. You also have an application problem. Now that's different. We haven't done that. And it's also in the lesson for today. You get to submit it online. And it's looking for perpendicular lines. It's kind of a review from last week. But you're looking for perpendicular lines in letters. So I want you to make sure that you click on everything in the lesson for today. And then at the bottom of the lesson for today, it's going to tell you that you have an optional game to play. Guys, I would love for you to play these optional games. They don't take very long. They are a great way to review what we have been talking about in our lessons. So make sure that you do that. They're short, they're sweet, they're not graded, and they're a really good way to solidify what we've been learning. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. And I hope you have a great week. And we're going to continue learning some geometry. See you next time.